experience the music of every Sunday as such a gift. Thank you. And thank you to my beloved older child in the tech booth for being here this morning and for everything he's taught me about love. When my beloved younger kid was about 2, I gave him some yogurt, or maybe a pancake, or some eggs for breakfast. I don't remember what the food was, but I remember exactly where we were in our house in Vancouver and what happened next. Whatever it was I was trying to feed him, which he'd asked for, I think, it was egregiously wrong. As soon as the plate or bowl was set down in front of him, he took in its wrongness, dissolved in tears, and heartbreakingly cried, "You've ruined my life!" I didn't laugh right away. My first reaction was not, "Oh, but I didn't mean to ruin your life. I'm just trying to give you breakfast." It wasn't, "I'm sorry this food offended you. I'm not a life-ruining monster. I never intended to hurt you." It was not, "Are you kidding me? You should be grateful for this food. What is wrong with you?" Of course not. He was 2, and he was upset. I got down to his level, rubbed his back, and said, "Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. Tell me what's wrong. What do you need? How can we fix this?" Later, it became a family catchphrase, a dramatic and funny way to tell each other that we were feeling a small hurt or even begrudging thanks because something another beloved family member had done to ruin our life. But in that moment, I had a tearful, upset young child who felt devastated by whatever food I'd put in front of him. And my impulse was not to defend my intentions, but to figure out how to repair the impact the wrong yogurt or pancake or eggs was having on him. I loved and love him, and I cared that he felt seen and that we would work together to fix it. In 2013, Jamie Utt, a diversity and inclusion consultant and sexual violence prevention educator based in Minneapolis, wrote an article for Everyday Feminism titled "Intent versus Impact: Why Your Intentions Don't Really Matter." He was looking at bigger harms than the wrong breakfast, at the question, what does the intent of our action really matter if our actions have the impact of furthering the marginalization or oppression of those around us? He wrote, "In some ways, this is a simple lesson of relationships. If I say something that hurts my partner, it doesn't much matter whether I intended the statement to mean something else, because my partner is hurting. I need to listen to how my language hurt my partner. I need to apologize. And then I need to reflect and empathize to the best of my ability so I don't do it again. But when we're dealing with the ways in which our identities intersect with those around us, and, in turn, the ways our privileges and our experiences of marginalization and oppression intersect, this lesson becomes something much larger and more profound. This becomes a lesson of justice. What we need to realize is that when it comes to people's lives and identities, the impact of our actions can be profound and wide-reaching. And that's far more important than the question of our intent. We need to ask ourselves what might be or might have been the impact of our actions or words. And we need to step back and listen when we are being told that the impact of our actions is out of step with our intents or our perceptions of self. Taking those steps of listening, reflecting, apologizing, and doing better feels natural to me when it's a 2-year-old who's feeling hurt by my actions. The love I feel for the child and my understanding of myself as the person with more power and responsibility in the relationship guide me instinctively to those steps of repair. But with older kids or adults, it's sometimes harder, as that clear sense of having more power and responsibility weakens. I want to protect my sense of being a caring, kind person, and defensiveness can creep in. We can't possibly be aware of all the impact we have on the people and the world around us. But when we pay attention, we see at least some of that impact. When I was young, people around me shared some unhelpful ideas about how people work and how they should get along that I've had to look at and debunk for myself to help me make a more loving response when I learn I've caused someone else pain or harm. The first idea is that sticks and stones can break my bones, but names or words can never hurt me. I know, both on the speaking and the listening end, that words can hurt. They can exclude. They can make people feel like they don't belong. The second idea is that it's the thought that counts, that if we assume that people have good intentions, that is enough to mitigate the impact they have. And the third idea, which was presented as the foundation of so many religions and seemed so reasonable that I don't remember examining it closely until I was an adult, was the so-called golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Given that it's Mother's Day, I feel moved to note that the first two ideas weren't messages from my wonderful, loving parents. My mom was particularly good at gently and lovingly making me aware of the impact my words and actions had on my younger brother in particular, but also everyone else. But those cultural messages still seeped in. And when I become aware I've hurt someone, on a bad day, my first impulse is still to reassure myself, I didn't mean to. That wouldn't bother me. I'm treating them as I want to be treated. But mostly, I can access a more loving response and focus on trying my best to repair the impact I had. To, as Jamie Utt suggests, listen, reflect, apologize, and do better. There are a number of things I worry about around the survival of our democracy, our country, our species, our planet. One of the things that gives me hope is that at our best as a species, we humans are creative and loving and collaborative. We do have the ability to work together to repair the hurt we've caused to each other and to the interdependent web of life of which we are a part. I choose to believe that most of us want to do that hard work together. But for us to be at our best as a collaborative, we all need to feel love and belonging. Feeling like we belong and that we love and are loved makes it possible to show up as our full, most energized selves. And I firmly believe that feeling love and belonging is necessary for us to do our best work together. And that's why things that might seem small, like calling someone the right name or using their preferred pronouns, matter, because it shows love and it increases people's sense of belonging. The 2024 update by the Unitarian Universalist Association to UU Shared Values and Principles, which at this point hasn't yet been adopted by the Canadian Unitarian Council, states, "Love is the power that holds us together, and it is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love." In a theological reflection on those UU shared values, the Reverend Dr. Sherry Prudhomme wrote, "We affirm the power of love to heal what is broken, to hold us together across pluralities of diverse religious practices and beliefs, to hold us when things fall apart, to grow our capacities, and to guide us as we return again and again in our families and communities to side with love." Along with affirming the power of love to heal, there are two ideas that I find helpful in guiding my actions, both in trying to have a kind, caring, loving impact on the people and world around me, and in acting to address the harm when I hurt someone despite my good intentions. The first is that the platinum rule is a better guide than the golden rule. Instead of doing unto others as I would have them do unto me, I should treat others as they want to be treated. This calls me to greater empathy and greater love. We all have different things we're sensitive to. And if something hurts someone, it hurts them, even if it doesn't hurt me. I'm not owed an explanation of their hurt, nor can my good intentions explain it away. The second idea is from Maya Angelou, and often misquoted as, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better." What she actually said in a personal conversation with Oprah Winfrey was, "You did in your 20s what you knew how to do. And when you knew better, you did better. And you should not be judged for the person that you were, but for the person that you're trying to be and the woman that you are now." I find this longer actual quote helpful because it emphasizes loving understanding of my younger self, which for me helps dissolve feeling like I need to defend my past choices, while still calling me to act responsibly and lovingly as I learn and grow. There are words I find hurtful, like, "That's so gay," to mean pathetic, or as the kids these days say, sorry Khalil, cringe. By the way, I'm bi. My mother's response when I came out to her in my 20s was, "Well, you need to be the one to tell your grandparents," which I never did. She doesn't remember this, and I know she didn't intend it hurtfully. In retrospect, it's kind of funny, but the impact wasn't supportive and loving the way basically everything else she has ever said to me has been. But it's probably not that, but mostly pervasive homophobia in phrases like, "That's so gay," that made it easier for me to fall in love with men than women. I treasure my monogamous and loving marriage to a smart, funny, thoughtful, straight, cisgender man. And I also resent feeling unsafe to show up as my full self in a lot of areas of my life, where I belong more because I seem straight. There are words and phrases that I've learned to avoid using, like lame or blind as metaphors for weakness or lack of insight, or pardon my French to excuse swearing. I've learned that they hurt people who live with disabilities or blindness, or francophones who feel their beautiful language is being maligned. I regret that I used those phrases, and now that I know better, I don't, or in the case of the more culturally embedded ones, am still imperfectly attempting not to use them. I want to share a recent story about that, with permission from those involved. In April, I was part of the team delivering the Canadian Unitarian Council's, and this is a long title, Designing and Leading Rites of Passage Basics Training for Lay Chaplains. When participants registered, we asked them for their pronouns. Dr. Jessica Motherwell McFarlane of the new congregation, or forming congregation, the UUs of the Salish Sea. Jessica's pronouns are she/they/not guys, in quotes. As we were preparing for the training session, we noted this, but clearly it didn't work to note that alone. As in their otherwise fairly positive feedback form, Jessica wrote, "I was sad that on all 3 days that my pronoun preference, she/they/not guys, was not respected. Nearly all lay chaplain presenters have a habit of calling the attendees guys. My pronoun preference was listed beside my Zoom name. We were not invited to say our pronouns at the start of the meeting, so I hoped writing my pronouns in Zoom would work. I'm a woman-identified person with a strong grounding in feminist ethics and spirituality. I felt excluded when my gender was, unintentionally, erased as presenters referred to us all as guys, even though we were a majority of women. To be clear, and I want to emphasize, I observed many examples of how all the presenters are kind-hearted and compassionate people guided by love. And, at the same time, in UU spaces, I expect and hope to not have gender-biased language. This repeated use of guys affected my feeling of being seen and welcomed as a woman-identified feminist person. My sadness at this language choice affected my experience of the training. I know my feedback might be unexpected or difficult to read. I offer this feedback with love. Optional, if it would be helpful to you, Please reach out if you want to talk about this further. When we reviewed the feedback, there was strong agreement that we owed Jessica an apology and that we needed to do better in future training sessions. Shoshana Green, a longtime lay chaplain in Montreal and now Kingston, offered to draft the apology. This is what she sent to Jessica after we all agreed we did want our names added to it, please. I and all the facilitators of the CUC lay chaplaincy training want to apologize to you for using guys as a form of group address during the workshops. We all saw your specified pronouns and made a note not to use the word, and none of us realized, until you brought it to our attention, that we'd slipped and done so anyway. Especially in UU spaces, you do have a right to expect better. We're sorry that this affected your experience of the training. It's never the responsibility of the person who's been microaggressed to fix the problem, but we hope the reason you didn't call the word use out in the moment was that you felt unsafe or thought we might react badly. I do feel confident that we would have heard you and made an immediate effort to do better, but if you didn't feel confident enough of that, that's probably another place where we failed. In our debrief yesterday, we talked about ways to help next year's trainers, many of whom will be drawn from this year's group, some of whom may be new, take more care with gendered language. So thank you for calling this out. You've not only helped us be more aware of our blind spots, but also hopefully improved the experience for future participants. Jessica's response to that apology transformed how I hear the word guys now. I was already trying to avoid using it as a collective form of address, but I don't think it will come naturally anymore. Instead, I will reach for words like friends, folks, people. Jessica responded, "Thank you for this apology. It is one of the most thorough and healing apologies I have ever received. Please consider us in right relations and on happy terms. You have given my heart warmth with your words." You wondered why I did not bring up or correct folks when guys was the group norm for lay chaplains addressing the larger group. Yes, based on my past experience raising this issue, I have had a range of reactions from, "I don't get it," to irritation or annoyance when I ask for gender-fair language. My discussion below also applies to any bro language, including guys, dude, bro, chaps, gents, etc. In my experience, folks are attached to or have a habit of using guys. It is inconvenient or irritating for them to use other language. For example, in the past, when I have raised this issue with cisgendered, women-identified people like me, rather than acknowledge and honor my request, they have been more likely to say, "I don't mind being called guys." Interestingly, I have never heard a cisgendered woman-identified person say, "I prefer to be called guys." That was the sentence that most shifted my understanding. Jessica continued, "I can tell from your reply to me that you all share the value that we all deserve to be named and referred to in the way we prefer, and not just settle for what is least objectionable. Sadly for me and others who feel the same way, over the past 35 years in my career, I can count on one hand the number of cisgendered women who have actually thanked me for lifting up this issue of the overgeneralization of guys to address a group. I know I am in the minority and almost always have had to wrestle to have my gender honored with gender-fair language. For example, many people I have raised this issue with have given me resistance and argued that guys is generic. My brief proof that guys is not generic is that we all know that guys don't menstruate unless they are trans men. Guys is not a generic term. I share all of the above with you to explain why I did not raise the issue. It would have been work for me to do so. I did not want to be that person who raised a potentially irritating issue and changed the tone you were all working so hard to establish. I hoped that my Zoom name and pronouns would suffice. One exception, when the facilitator used guys in our small group setting, I did raise the issue, and my preference was honored within that small group session. Going forward, I hope to continue working within UU spaces and beyond to advocate for gender-honoring, inclusive language. Sometimes my advocacy will be face-to-face, and sometimes it will be in the form of feedback. I am truly grateful to all you lay chaplains who read and enthusiastically embraced my feedback. I feel seen and heard. That last sentence in particular led me to ask Shoshana and Jessica if I could share their words today. And Jessica's enthusiastic agreement reinforced for me how important it is to pay loving attention to our impact and how it affects others' sense of belonging. Jessica said, "For me, receiving Shoshana's apology from you all changed the feeling in my heart from a resigned sadness about the guys issue to delight and joy over being seen and heard. Thank you again, Shoshana and Lay Chaplaincy Committee." As Jessica further noted, repair and apology can serve as acts of love-centered care in our sacred and fumbling human relationships. The lay chaplaincy training happened after I'd already asked to do today's service, and was not what pushed me to think about intent and impact. The instigation was actually one of the hymns Octavia McIsaac suggested for their March 15th service, Harry Belafonte's 1074, Turn the World Around. We sang a different hymn that day because Reverend Kimberly Debus's blog project, Notes from the Far Fringe, in which she's explored every hymn in our gray and teal hymnals, noted that there's an anti-gay slur in the lyrics, and that when he became aware of it, Harry Belafonte reportedly said that we shouldn't use the hymn anymore. I ended up wanting to look at the question of impact and intention more broadly, but you can read Reverend Debus's blog post and also Norm Cobb's advocacy for the hymn in last month's Communicator. I continue to feel that respecting the artist's wishes, doing better once we know better, and following the platinum over the golden rule would guide us to not sing that hymn anymore. If, as Esther Catherine and my mother have helpfully repeatedly advised me, I have spoken more slowly this morning, I am out of time to elaborate on that. But I'm grateful to have had this time to explore intention and impact and how they affect people's sense of love and belonging. I am also grateful to our wonderful music director, Shannon Unger, for choosing number 1018 as our closing hymn, because it is another example of lovingly paying attention to impact and deliberately widening the circle of our love so that, ideally, all feel they belong. In 2017, at the Unitarian Universalist Association's General Assembly, Reverend Jason Shelton, composer of hymn number 1018, originally titled Standing on the Side of Love, introduced the lyrics he'd written to update his hymn. It is now called Answering the Call of Love. And since we're about to sing it, it feels right this morning to end my reflections on intention, impact, love, and belonging with his 2017 introduction at the General Assembly to the updated hymn. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound. Sometimes our words themselves are the barriers. The metaphors we use for the work of justice matter. If we are called to be in this work together, then we have to understand when our words become barriers to full participation. What does love call us to do? For some, it's standing on the side of love. For some, standing is not an option. And the continued use of that metaphor is a painful reminder of the barriers to full inclusion of people with disabilities in our congregations and at our general assemblies. What is my responsibility as an artist when awareness of this pain comes to my consciousness? I am clear that the standing on the side of love metaphor, as I intended it, has nothing to do with the physical act of standing. It's about aligning ourselves with what love calls us to do. But I am also clear that intent is not the same thing as impact, and the impact of this metaphor has become a barrier for some among us. Friends, when love calls, it sometimes asks us to let go of our attachments. Love is calling us to a new and deeper awareness, and I can do something about the song that I wrote. So I ask you to rise, not in body, but truly to rise in spirit, mindful of all that might mean for you, and join me in answering the call of love.